All right, everyone, and welcome and thank you for being here and giving me your much valued attention in this regard. Opening thoughts. Let's get right into this. We got a lot to talk about. So, I don't want your subs or your likes. I don't want to personally gain anything from this. Simply want my game back from these cheaters. They run rampant and they absolutely ruin the game for pretty much absolutely anyone and everyone. It's gone on for far too long and blah blah blah. So we'll get into that. That's kind of my opening deals. I don't want anything from this. What do I want? I want not to convince you that this is a problem, but I need to convince you to get this in front of and in the eyesight and ear shot, whatever, right, of the larger creators and whatnot, so that this can become a very just popularized thing and it can get talked about in the light and at the level it needs to so it gathers the attention. So if you are Epic in this case, right, and you're claiming 700,000 concurrent players, are you going to pull 700,000 players for their individual opinions on kind of like how the game is and all that? No, that would be absolute insanity. You're not going to do that. What they are most likely doing is they're looking at like their top creators. It's much easier to look at like 10 creators and whatnot because creators and their audience, they usually kind of echo chamber each other in a sense, right? Back and forth, they kind of influence one another. And yeah, so, but at the end of the day, the reason I believe that that's the way they're doing it is because it's just a lot more efficient because time is money. So that is why I'm choosing this method. And that is what I need you guys to do. I'm not trying to convince you that this is a problem. By that regard, you probably already believe it is. I'm just trying to convince you that my reasoning for doing this, or how I want this to be done, is the right way. So, all right, moving on to our first and probably one of the biggest, like the big old main course of this whole video. All right, so for our first thought and our big old main course that I was talking about is using trnrltracker.com. I feel like that's pretty widespread known of a tool to use. Go on to the our just the rank distribution tab, and you can see exactly how many players are in what rank in what place at one time for the different play modes. And I went with 2v2 because it is by far the most played game mode out of the entire deal. And also to keep it simple, I stuck with 2v2 throughout the theme of this whole conversation. Now, there's a lot on here, all the way from Diamond One, and they're like, I kind of just put those two in there just because they're kind of just weird outliers compared to like the direct surrounding ranks. But what we're focusing on here is the question: is it weird to assume that players champ one and above, 50% of them have one alt? Right, that is the question. I did not believe that was unreasonable, so that's what I went with. Now, that being said, there is a stupid amount of people in champ compared to champ 2 and all that. So using that knowledge and a little bit of just kind of thinking about it, I took half that overall number, then took 50% because I don't want to start double counting people potentially and all that. Like these numbers are never going to be truly accurate. Like, oh, I've got my thumb right on the actual problem and here's the number, right? This is a general like kind of percentage and a general sense that I'm coming up with. And that's kind of what I'm going for here. So you can see there that with all the numbers, you can see the individuals after the calculated efforts, 118,013, 123, 189, et cetera, et cetera. When you add all of them up, that comes to a total of 366,835. Now, if you do not take half of the players, right, and you just add up all the players champ one and above and take 50% of that, that's a raw number I took down of 484,848. Right? A lot of numbers. And that's a lot of potential like problems here. So Lawler mentioned this a while back. I know Lethamir mentioned it very recently as well in one of his videos where an Epic employee mentioned that they had 700,000 concurrent players. And specifically with Lawler's deal, they said it ranged between 500 to 700,000. So I went with 500 to 700,000 because that's originally when I took this data. And I'll just be honest, I didn't feel like changing it. So, what does it look like, money? Well, that's a great question. If we're going by 500,000, that means 73 to 96 players concurrent are potentially Smurfs. If you go by 700,000, it's 52 to 69%. Now, why is that interesting? It's a shocking percentage nonetheless. And it's, to me, like, it's not surprising by any means. I mean, when you legitimately have no barrier to this problem, people are going to do it. Like they are going to cheat. They are going to try to take advantage of any little like loophole they can find. And voila, there you go. We have our current issue, right? So, what's interesting personally about this issue is a couple of years ago, I was down in the Diamond 3 area and whatnot, trying to look to make my first push into champ. And I got so mad about the amount of just smurfing that was happening that I started taking down tally marks. I forced myself to play through 10 more games and I set up some criteria. What was that criteria? It was a stupid number of wins, and they were able to do absolutely everything. They were able to do attacking very well, defending very well. They were pulling off a lot of higher, like advanced mechanics consistently, like literally just doing absolutely everything and performing at a pretty unreasonable level. So, yeah, and then for instance, I at the time it was like I limited it to 1,500 wins. Like if they had that lower and they were doing all this, it was kind of crazy, right? I'd be like, okay, that's a mark. So that whole overall came to 6 out of 10 of those very next games during that same night, and that just so happens to fit perfectly in that percentage range. Like that's crazy. That was kind of the moment for me that was like, wow, there's something to that. That's insane. Like it's one thing to have a feeling, it's another thing when you start looking at it with a little bit of thought and be like, okay, let's take 50% of this. And because it's not wild to assume that half these players have just one Smurf, by the way, just one, right? Like, so that's kind of crazy, to think. And then also by your own experience, like, for me on an average, it's anywhere between 4 to 7 out of 10 games every single time I play this game, right? I get off work, I come home, I want to play games with the homies and whatnot. I like this game. I play this game a lot, want to get better at it, and we try to enjoy ourselves. But man, does it get absolutely exhausting to consistently have to go against people that are just absolutely ruining the fun and the overall gameplay experience for pretty much everybody they come across. It's ridiculous. As I mentioned earlier, like there's no reason that it should be this easy. Like you just create a new Gmail account and then congratulations, Bob's your uncle. Epic is really good at having a no/low barrier to entry for their games. Like that's fine and dandy, but you can't have a complete free and open, just lawless land like that and not expect there to be issues. I mean, I understand, like, it's a successful game. It's doing rather well. My estimations for the game before I even looked at these numbers and did the math was 150 to 250,000 concurrent players. I was like, it's a bit old game, right? It's like 9 years old, coming on in almost a decade or something like that, dang near. But I was like, it's exclusive, right? It is the only place you can go to get this experience. And that's working in its favor. So I was like, 150, 250,000. That's, across all platforms. If you take the number of Smurfs and you get like that, it's crazy if you take those numbers and just subtract them from one another because you get pretty dang close to what I just sort of offhand predicted before I did any of this math. So I think I'm on to something here. I think I'm pretty close to the target, right? Like I said, there's going to be a bit of variance here because not exactly 50% of champ ones and above have one alt, whatever, blah, blah, this. But I think it all averages out between people having like 3 or 4 just parked in different ranks and all that. So, bit of a longer point that time. And that's yeah, there's that one. Looking forward, we got a little bit more to talk about. This isn't just a video of complaining. So Right, so like I said, this isn't a video of just complaining. I like to offer a little bit of kind of looking forward. How do we fix this, right? It's one thing to just sit here and complain because anybody can just sit here and rant, right? And that's the other thing. I'm trying not to rant, right? I'm normally I'm very very energetic and very enthusiastic, and especially when things get me emotionally charged like this because it makes you mad. Like, and I'm trying to keep the language very friendly so that it's easy for people to get behind this and do what I need them to do with it so that we can get this done. So, what are we talking about here with the way forward? First and foremost, because it's not just these Smurfs that are a problem, it's the people that are getting boosted as well. God forbid that you know somebody that actually paid money to get rank in a video game, but it has and does happen, unfortunately. But a hard reset, right? And that's for all MMR. Now, with that, for the players that have gotten everything they do fairly, I'm not looking to, screw them out of anything. You keep your titles, awards, and achievements, right? Like, there's no real way to weed through exactly who was who and whatnot, and who got it legitimately and who didn't. So it's just don't take that away. I think a yearly reset, once a year, is going to be the way forward as well. That way, it's also gives people something to look forward to. The regrind, right? The re getting at it, I guess. I don't know. Mainly, this is going to be a big benefit to the content creators, and it provides that legitimacy to their road to whatever series. I'm not the biggest fan of those series because although 99% of the creators do educational like content revolving around that series, it is still smurfing at the end of the day. So it wouldn't be, it would be pretty contradictory for me to sit here and just be like, yeah, I see absolutely no problem with that, right? So I'm not saying you're doing it to be just negative and harmful. Like I understand why you're doing it. You're trying to get the views. You're trying to give your audience something to be entertained in, and then why not be educational at the same time? Like I completely understand, but like I said, I can't contradict myself and sit here and say that I support that type of content while telling you smurfing is bad. So that's kind of my thought on that. Multi-factor authentication. This is the big one. This is, I believe, how we can really put an end to this. The multi-factor authentication, one account per user via some sort of hardware ID or whatever. I'm not some technical whiz. I just know for a fact that an email and just having an email that you log into is just simply not enough. And all this, man, I think that would be bigger or equal to news to free to play coming out. So, I mean, it would be huge because one of the big things that these game companies and whatnot they look at onboarding new players, but it's also about player retention, especially of that newer audience. Your people that are like usually champ and above, they've got quite a bit of time invested in the game. It's going to be quite unlikely for them just to randomly quit the game because of something stupid happening or whatever. But like you got less than like 1,000 hours or 1,000 hours even. I mean, people might just quit it out of principle too. I mean, you never know exactly what will make someone go, you know what, I'm done. But there's no reason that you should be constantly hit against people that are exploiting the rank system and exploiting a loophole in the game by not having some sort of authentication that prevents you from just having multiple accounts that these guys just get on there, they level them up to 20 because that did a whole lot, right? I'm being facetious there if you couldn't tell. I'm not the best at projecting sarcasm over the microphone, but that did a whole lot. They get it up there, so they get a nice warm up, and then they proceed to just you know dunk on everybody, and they get to the rank they want, and they park it. Then begins the game of they just go for clips, they go for whatever, they don't care if they start dropping a rank too much, where now all of a sudden it doesn't quite look like the way they want. The defense isn't putting up as much of a fight as they want. They just simply rank up a little bit more. Because they're trying to farm. They're trying to either a feed like their own little content deal they got going on, or they're just doing it purely because they want to feel superior to somebody in the lobby. At the end of the day, that's what it is. Or on the tertiary option, they're making money. So they make this new account, they boost somebody in a party with them and whatnot, and they get paid to do it. So there's at least three avenues that are taken and why they do this. And one thing I want to touch on, I don't agree with the whole idea and the whole sentiment entirely of saying, well, the entire player base as a whole is getting better. And well, yesterday's diamonds are today's plats. Okay. I don't agree with that sentiment entirely. I do agree that the player base as a whole is getting better, but it's insulting to people's intelligence and your ability to perceive things when you tell me that I can't look at four players on the field and see that players A and B and C are kind of on the same sort of area, and player D is just absolutely destroying everybody with just no opposition, pretty much. Like they are clearly falling above the mark. Like it's just insulting to people's intelligence when you tell them that. It's like peeing on them and tell them it's raining. It's just, you know, it's just, So I agree that the players and the player base as a whole is getting better. The skill ceiling in this game is getting higher and higher constantly. But to use that as an excuse to say that, well, that's why this is happening. This is why you think it's happening. I mean, it's look, man, like there's no way to stop people. You see people with constantly with less than like 1,000 wins coming on there and just absolutely destroying you in champ two lobbies or whatever, and they're just, and of course they're always in just base cars, the Stocktane. I think we've all heard, we're all very familiar with that term. Stocktane is very much the makings. Like, they've just got no decals, no nothing, or one of the free decals that comes with it. And you already know, you see on TRN, it's like, oh, this person has 100 wins and they're in a Stocktane. It's like, here we go, let's see what we got. you know but I think that's that for that. We can talk about some of the good things as well. All right, a couple of the good things that have come out. I'm going to kind of put them up here and kind of let them go through and rotate on the screen a little bit and whatnot. So some of the good things. We can't have all this negativity without saying something good. And these little updates we've been getting, they've been great, right? I'm a massive fan of having a teammate boost meter. I see no negative to that at all. So well done. Right, server improvements, we like those as well. Anything to make the game feel more consistent in a good manner is a good thing, in my opinion. Absolutely. Online free play, another good one. I mean, I didn't realize how much fun that was going to be until me and my buddies hopped into a lobby and chaos ensued. But I mean, it was good fun. So, and it's a useful tool, especially if you're like in a group and you can just reset the ball. You got everything set up, unlimited boost, everything. You don't got to create a private lobby, all this. But in big thing that sells it is you got all the controls to sort of make the ball do what you need it to do to get yourself set up in an ideal situation. So lots of W's all around. Further touching on a little bit of a point, you always hear people like in the content universe ask you, what is the thing you want to see for this game? Right? What is that one thing? You know, I've got like two. So, first and foremost, I don't know if UE5 is really realistic. Okay. That would be absolutely fantastic, right? Because that provides so much utility. It would make customization for custom just everything just right at your fingertips. It would be a massive utility and bring a lot to the game. Like better physics, better everything. But the problem is that the reason that's dangerous is they've got to work a lot to make sure the game plays very not like or very similarly, if not the exact same, just with better physics. That's a difficult task to undertake, I would imagine. So I don't think that's exactly the most likely. What I know could be done, the other one thing that I would want that is um, a lot more feasible is higher refresh servers. So it's nice that we got central servers added and all that jazz, but the ghost touches that are happening, I mean, they happen almost every game. They're happening and whatnot. I mean, ask Atomic how that one felt. Live on a live at a LAN event. I mean, if it's happening at a LAN event, like you can take out latency and everything from the question there. That's got to be a server issue at that point. I think it's something to do with server send receive rate and all that versus your client's refresh rate. I think that's what it has something to do with. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. But and then obviously I want this smurfing thing to come to a dead halt. It's not realistic for it to be entirely gone. There's just going to be some people that are just very committed to the ideology of being trash and trying to ruin other people's times. But I mean, wouldn't it be nicer if it was a lot lower? You know, like I'm just wishful thinking here. It'd be a lot better. And the thing is we have nothing to lose by making this happen. We have everything to gain as the player base. Like like, I don't know if I can be any more clear than that. What would be the negative side effect to making it hard for people to smurf? You know, it's just insane. Obviously, you don't want to lock things out for everybody. Maybe a bit of your younger player base might come a little bit into question here with the multi-factor authentication. Not all parents, not all families believe in letting their younger child have a smartphone. So maybe you don't have casual locked out, right? If you don't have 2FA enabled and all that good stuff. So because we don't want to just deny people the ability to play the game outright. But I mean, there's multiple iterations of other games that have done this, and they're still very successful. The first and foremost, Rainbow Six Siege, they've got it. You can't play competitive without two-factor authentication. So I'm like 99% sure on that. I just did it. I didn't read into it. I didn't try to play competitive without it, but I'm assuming that's why they did it. And also to help protect people's accounts. So, but yeah, I mean, adding that layer of protection, making it harder for people to just not do what they're not supposed to do, right? Or make it harder for them to do what they're not supposed to do. That's the proper way to say that. It's always a good thing. And I'm kind of reaching the end of my tolerance for it. I want to see action. I want to see something done. Thank you for listening to me. Hopefully, not rant, but I appreciate it and take care.